Recording in progress.
Okay. It is exactly 5 p.m. I call this meeting to order. It looks like we have almost everybody here except Council Member Jack Walsh.
I think he's gonna be late. Yeah.
Oh, really late?
He's
Okay.
gonna come, I've heard.
All right. Huang Tran, Chair of FedRac, and I'm gonna ask council members to introduce themselves instead of me introduce them. We start with Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Susan Honda.
Councilmember Paul McDaniel.
Councilmember Jack Dovey.
Council President Linda Kochmar.
Councilmember Lydia Safa-Dawson.
Oh, the most important person have arrived. Jack, you want to introduce yourself for the record?
Jack Walsh, finally present.
All right, thank you. Do we have any public comments?
We do not have public comments.
We don't? All right. Moving on to committee business. The first item is item A, approval of summary minutes for October 2023.
I move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, matter passed 3-0. We are moving on to item B, and that will be presented by Ms. Carter, Chief Huang, and Mr. Johnson. While they get ready, today is the Travel Tuesday, right? Everybody know that, right? So.
But you're not traveling.
So, no, it is the day that most of airlines and hotel and cruises put their best price on sale. So let's wrap this meeting a little bit faster so that I can go home and book my trips. So
Can you advise us on where we should travel next year?
Sure, offline. Go ahead, sorry.
Good evening, Chair Huang, Chair Chuan, and Council President, Deputy Mayor, Council members, committee members. Tanya Carter, your Economic Development Director. I am here to present the first item of business today, and I have Chief Huang here with me in case anyone has any more detailed questions on the program that he is collaborating with Economic Development on. So this is a presentation for ARPA Business Resiliency Program. And the policy question is also in your agenda packet. I've put it up here. Should the City of Federal Way use ARPA funds for a business resiliency program that includes the purchase of 2 additional mobile surveillance units and administration of a business broken window fund grant program? So essentially what I have is just a summary on the following 3 slides. The first slide just overviews the financial impacts. And for this program, for the Business Resiliency Program, $220,000 would be used. Of the $220,000 being used, $100,000 would be used for the Broken Window Fund, and $120,000 would be used for the Mobile Surveillance Trailers, or MSTs. A summary of the Mobile Surveillance Trailer Program. Currently, there are 4 MSTs that are existing with the Federal Way Police Department. So there were 2 that were just recently granted. I don't know if they're purchased yet. This addition would be 2 additional MSTs, and the trailer total then would be 6 total trailers. And essentially, Economic Development will collaborate with PD, with the police department, to coordinate a little bit more of a outreach program to the business community. The PD and Chief Huang can speak to this. The business community has really made a very large request of these MST, these mobile surveillance trailers, to be used and to be available for them to use. And again, he can speak more in detail on that. But basically, the program would consist of roughly circulating the trailers upon request for about 2-ish weeks, and whichever property owners, businesses in the community would request it, would be able to sign up and avail of the MSTs to be rotated around to their facilities. The second program is the Business Broken Window Fund, and this was a request from council to put together a fund using ARPA dollars. And essentially, in discussions with several other cities who have had these programs for over a year, it was determined that the best way to administer this program would be to partner with an organization, a CDFI in this case, that does administer programs like this, because it's a heavily administrative program, which the other cities that we spoke to were needing anywhere from 2 or 3 PTE, so part-time employees, in addition to 2 or 3 full-time employees to administer the programs. So extremely administrative, heavy program. The length of the program would be roughly 9 months, so about 9 to 10 months. And the way that it would work is essentially the business would apply to a secure portal online that Evergreen Business Capital would be operating. So it is something that they do, for their daily business, is operate secure financial sites. And the businesses would then be vetted. And after the businesses would be vetted, there would be outreach done to the businesses by Evergreen to coordinate the documentation needed to provide the grant, and then the funding would be granted. So that is a high-level summary. There was also more detail in the staff report. Chief Huang is also here to answer any questions, as I am, should you have any.
Thank you.
Jack.
Jack?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. When I read about the broken glass, it looked like administration was 30,000 and only so only 70,000 goes to glass repair.
Correct.
Why wouldn't, I would propose, why don't we buy 2 more of the mass systems and forget about the glass, because that's going to be long-term in our city, and glass is going to last 9 months and $3,000 to $5,000 a thing probably. We're not going to affect that many businesses. Could we do that if the council wanted to?
Yeah, and actually, Chief Huang can provide a little bit more information on what the business requests are as they relate to MSTs.
That's my question. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, council. March of this year, we purchased 2 mobile surveillance trailers. As a pilot project, we used the seizure funds to purchase them. And since its deployment, what we've learned is that there's a high demand from our business community to have the MSTs at their place of business. If you drive around town now, large corporations, a lot of the businesses actually have their own MSTs, or they hire a vendor to place an MST that's monitored or what have you. For example, Lowe's, Winco's, they have the MSTs, but a lot of our smaller business owners can't really afford the MSTs. They range between $50,000 to $60,000. And the reason why ours cost that much is because it's part of our Vigilon Safe City program. So with this MSTs, when we're actually having a problem, let's say drug activity, or we're going to actually do a drug sting operation, we'll place our MST nearby and watch the activities so we can use it for our operations. But since then, there's been just high demand for these MSTs. Maybe years ago, hotels didn't want these MSTs because they might tell their customers or clients that, hey, we have a problem here with potential, crime. But nowadays, it's like, everybody wants these MSTs at their places. All the hotel owners are wanting them. For example, with our maintenance facility, the break-in that we had, we decided to place one of the MSTs at our facilities to enhance our security measures there, so we have one there now. So with that demand, and I just received a demand from Little League Baseball saying, hey, when we have our tournaments, we saw your council presentation, can we get, MST at our baseball tournaments? Because every now and then we'll have car break-ins. I said, sure, you just let me know, I'll have 2 there for you during the tournament weekends. So I just received that request today. So the word gets out, there's gonna be higher demand for the MSTs. Because of the MSTs, we came to council and we received your approval to purchase 2 more, again, using our seizure, forfeiture funds to do that. And then, as we were working on that, we started working in partnership with Tanya here, Economic Development of 8. There might be an opportunity to purchase 2 more. So we were pretty excited about that. So if we have 6, I can assure you, we'll have these deployed, and they're a lot more effective than our, what we call ECAT, our empty patrol car. We've been doing that, but since the MSTs, the businesses are saying, no, we prefer to have the MSTs because even the crooks know that those cars aren't occupied by a police officer. But even then, we thought, hey, it's something, it could deter crime, prevent crime. It's hard to quantify, measure in terms of how much crime it's preventing, but when you have those MSTs, even if you go to the hotels, you'll have customers parking like real close to these trailers because they feel like their car will be safer around this technology. So we're recording it, we're using it for operation, but the technology has changed and the demand has changed. So that's why we're coming to council saying, if we can get 2 more here, that would be really good for our community and we would support our business community that local businesses can't afford.
Paul and then Deputy Mayor.
I'm actually going to start off with the MSTs. So currently, we have 2 with us right now, 2 on order, and we're looking at voting on 2 more.
We've ordered 2. We decided internally to just hold off until how this process goes because we are negotiating with them. What we're finding is the ones we have generator backup, and I'm getting recommendation from my staff that we don't need to get the Cadillac version with generator backup. Let's just get it with a larger solar panel that's gonna get us through the evening. So we're looking at possibly getting the future ones without it. And I don't know the exact cost. We know it's gonna be less than 60,000 because 60,000 is with a generator backup capability. But our staff is saying, let's not go with that. So I'm gonna trust my officers, and so we should be able to get a better pricing without the generator backup.
So we have 2 approved then, not ordered yet, determined on this. 2 that we're going to be looking at approving tonight. And then how many do we actually have currently in for usage?
We have
deployed?
2 deployed now. We have it within the police department that we're operating. We receive approval from council to buy 2 more.
Yep.
And then tonight, if we get the approval for 2 more, we'll be a total of 6.
6.
And what I was asking is, let's forget the windows and buy 4 or 3, because I think personally they're more beneficial to the community.
And then so when we do have these, just a curiosity, so when we do have these set up, I guess one of them's in a business right now. What business is that one located at? Or what, one's sitting over at the maintenance facility, and where's the other one located then?
It's been at the Marriott.
Okay. Now, when we do have crime, everything goes down in these areas, and we do have the cameras, are we able to use them, have we been able to use them for arrest, or are they pretty much more of a deterrent capabilities?
The video recording?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be able to look at those. Yeah, our Safe City camera system retains video recording for 7 days. So if we have a crime, we can always go back and look at it. And if we have video, we can always, obtain video of that, save that for part of the evidence.
Gotcha. Have we been able to use it at all for any arrest or anything yet?
I can't think of an example right now.
Okay. And then my other one, I'm going to jump over to, I know we're going to discuss if we're going to even do the window program, but I have a couple questions on the window program, so.
I'll take that back. As far as arrests, we use them for drug operations.
Okay.
So we're watching them from our camera, and then the units move in.
Gotcha, okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So the MSTs, they're in the parking lots, so they're not stopping any theft in the store. It's just what's going on in the parking lot. Is that correct?
It's for deterrence. Yep, it's recording, and it has flashing LED
Right.
strobe lights at the top.
So how far do the cameras reach? Do they reach, like if, so there's one in the Target parking lot that's been there. Is that Target's or is that ours?
That's going to be probably targets.
Does that see the front door? Does that see if someone's running in and out of the front door, if someone's stealing stuff, that they can identify that person?
I'm sure it could, yes. It can certainly zoom in, zoom out, so yes, it's recording whatever angles the cameras are pointed at.
So you said that there's one over at the maintenance yard. I was at the PAC twice on Saturday for two different events and had a chance to talk with Brian about safety there, because the security officer was going in and out quite often in the parking lot. And he mentioned some issues in the parking lot with damage to cars, and a car had been stolen recently during a performance there. Could we have, since that is our property and we are responsible for that property, could we have one of those at the PAC to maybe deter things happening there? We also had 2 fires set up there this weekend. It sounds like there's some security issues going on that they need some assistance for, and maybe one of these could help deter some of that behavior?
Yeah, there's already a camera system there, Safe City camera there, but most people aren't aware that there's a camera that's there, it's recording. So when you have the MSTs, the visible deterrence is, it's visible and it has Federal Way Police, decals on the side. So yes, they could serve as a deterrent, especially when we have a special event. I'm not going to tell you that having this is going to deter all crime, but it certainly will help.
It might be better than having to hire more security that we can't afford right now in that area.
I don't think anything can substitute,
Right.
boots on the ground,
Oh,
but
I agree. But-
this is one way, a cost-effective way of deploying some crime prevention measures, security measures.
Okay, thank you. And do you think that this would be better to buy more than, to buy 2 or 3 more of these instead of using the money for replacement windows?
If we have more, we can certainly use them. If we had 7, we can certainly deploy all of them. And there's going to be maintenance with some of these, so they're not going to always be operational. If something goes wrong with them, we have to get them repaired. So if there's 7, we can certainly put it to use. But at the end of the day, with all the facts, it's really a policy decision. I could certainly live with 6, but if we had 7, our special operations unit can deploy it, and there's a high demand. There's more places that's requesting it than we can actually place them at this point, but we could create some sort of a schedule.
Are windows being broken as often as they were in the past?
I would say no. But the way things are damaged now, it's more severe, because more and more burglars are using, vehicles and cars to smash into businesses, because that's the quickest way to access a business, and they know we can't pursue them. But a while back, we had a serial, window breaker. We had a couple of individuals, and we arrested him numerous times, but he got no jail time at the felony level. And how we solved that problem was we worked with the city attorney's office, and we charged him with misdemeanor offenses, and we locked him up. And that's how we solved that problem.
So if we had the broken window program and someone uses a vehicle to ram a door or a window to get in, they're causing more than a broken window, they're causing structural damage, which the property owner's still going to have to cover? Because the broken window program wouldn't be able to cover that, correct?
Well, I'm assuming building owner's going to have, insurance, so the insurance is going to repair that. But let's say we were going to use these funds for fixing the storefront, you're going to maybe repair 1 or 2 businesses, because when they ram a car into a business, you're talking about, $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 damage repairs.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Council President, and then Lydia, and then Jack.
So I guess I would like to discuss the comparison between having another mast or having the broken window program. So if we pay $30,000 to Evergreen, that means we have $60,000 left to pay for the broken window program, which if you did $3,000 per business, that would give us 20 businesses, I'm assuming. So I guess maybe, so the ARPA funds, for me, we haven't been able to give much back to the community that would be tangible. And although I believe your MAST program would probably be more effective overall, but I still think that we should be using some of this ARPA money to give back to our community the funds back to the community in their own pocket. I know maybe 3,000 won't cover a $6,000 or more broken window, but at least we would be able to give them something. So I think that we're out of pocket, 30,000 to give to this Evergreen company. I think we should have a discussion on, and I agree, Jack, I think that the mass would be better, but I just think that, for me, it's trying to get the money back into the community's hands, ARPA money. So that's,
I would say that we gave millions to social services to go to the people, not so much to businesses, but 20 businesses or even 30 is a drop in the bucket versus having them not have things happen in their parking lots.
yeah, but I still want to have the discussion. Thanks.
I don't know, may I just share some information? So we did talk to 2 cities, and 1 city, we heard from the second city, what that city had said. So we've talked to Seattle, to Tacoma, and Seattle also talked to San Francisco quite extensively. And in the end of the day, the catch-22 is that the program sounds really great, but only about 40 to 60% of the funds within a year in both Seattle and Tacoma have been distributed because of I can only share, right, what those cities have shared after their year experience, and it's everything from, incomplete applications to the business didn't qualify to they didn't have a business license to they didn't, have a police report to they didn't have, anyway, any number of the very simple administrative documentation that's needed to actually provide the grant. And so, the funds, even though there were relatively, proportionally more funds. All 3 of those cities all said that they, in a year, have not distributed, even roughly half of the funding. So a lot of the cost actually that's where all of the administrative, FTE, PTE comes in, up to, some cities had 7 people that were trying to administer this program.
Thank you. Lydia?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing with us. With the broken windows, my concern is they're broken today, they're fixed, and they're going to probably be broken again. And so then what do you do in that case, right? So maybe having the MST might be more useful because it would be an ongoing service. And like Chief said, when one breaks, then at least you do have enough to still go around. And so I kind of support Jack's idea in that regard. But also, so to that point, my question then is, with the no pursuit law, even though you see the people committing a crime, if you can't pursue, then is it effective?
Well, for all property crimes, stolen vehicle, commercial burglary where it's unoccupied, we cannot pursue for those crimes. And as frustrating as it was for the officers to watch a pickup truck towing a trailer leave our city facility, and there's no way that pickup was going to outrun a bunch of police vehicles, by law, we have to let them go. We can't follow them or we can't chase them. We're not going to violate the state law. So I think you're comparing apples to oranges. I think MST is really a crime prevention tool, high visibility. It's kind of the new innovation technology that's come along to help retailers. Large retailers can buy their own, sign a lease or contract with companies, but we're really trying to support maybe more smaller businesses, retail centers, even large. If they don't have one and they're asking for it. I know that Marriott has asked for it, Hampton, same thing with Holiday Inn and Skybridge Hotel, they've requested it. So we're moving things around, but because of our loss at the maintenance center, we thought, hey, let's harden our target. Let's just go ahead and put an MST right there to signal to people driving by that, hey, we're paying attention. So it's just one part. And with these MSTs, I gotta think that somebody might want to try to steal it, may want to damage it because it says the police on it. We were very intentional, even though it makes it a target maybe to some, but we also wanted to show that Federal Way PD was, monitoring these trailers. And MSTs, and we are recording it. So depending on the lighting and so forth, we may or may not be able to get a license plate or, good visual of a person, but we really think having this will certainly help deter crime. Because why are people breaking less into homes? Because more and more people have hardened their homes with video surveillance technology and alarms and so forth. So it's the same concept. Having higher visibility, being monitored will deter a lot of people. Not everyone, but a lot.
Yeah, so that's my question. Is it going to be a false security versus it really being effective? And I do support the idea, so my question really is, if they're so emboldened to break windows and to steal something and just, leave in front of police officers, what's going to stop them? I mean, is this really going to deter them from committing the crime because they cannot be pursued? That's my question, really.
Yep.
But
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to deter all crime. Someone who's determined is going to commit crime, whether they're on video surveillance or not, because we still have some home break-ins, right? I mean, you've seen the dramatic drop-off, but you still have some people committing. So by having that technology, it's going to deter a lot of people from it, because when they're making an assessment of, do I break into this business, or do I shoplift here or not, they're driving by and they're calculating, do I want to do it or not? And the more security that you have, the less likely. To give you an extreme example, if there are 5 officers standing in front of Lowe's and the bad guy's driving by, is he going to commit a shoplifting in that incident or not, or steal a car? Probably not. But we can't have an officer at every potential business. So by having these MSTs, they're a cost-effective way of having some level of presence, and the business owners think that they want it. Perfect example is Federal Way National Little League getting a hold of me today and saying, we want these MSTs during our tournaments. Is that something you can do for us, Chief? Absolutely. If we have 6 of them, we'll be able to do it.
thank you.
Jack?
Yeah. I agree with the other Jack that I think that the MSTs would be better use of the funds than the window program. One thing that with the window program, you were saying that about 40% of the applicants didn't get approved. Mm-hmm. I'd say that there's probably 40% of the applicants then that ended up more frustrated than needlessly frustrated. They had their hopes up, and then it didn't go anywhere. And so in a way, that's almost counterproductive. And with the overhead with it, being a business owner, a small business owner, I think that I can represent the business community pretty well, where, hey, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and the MSTs, that's that ounce of prevention. And so I would strongly support putting all of the funds into the MSTs rather than the window program. With Chief, I guess a question for you is, it may be, we haven't had the MSTs that long, but it seems like that over time we'd be able to get some stats on, hey, when an MST is in a certain area, is the crime rate or break-ins and stuff lower statistically than when they're not there? And it's probably too soon to tell, but it seems like eventually we'd be able to come up with some stats on that.
It might be hard to quantify, measure. We might be able to do some.
Mm-hmm.
We could look at specific business, place it there, and see if during that month or, whatever weeks, what type of shoplifting experience did they have versus when they didn't.
Right.
So that might be one way. We might be able to measure it in terms of just that reporting district,
Mm-hmm.
but that might be a little harder. But
Mm-hmm.
sure, we could try to maybe do a little survey with business owners. I can work with Tanya on that. And when was the MST there, and how did that impact the business in a positive way, or did it not have any impact? So we could provide some sort of
Okay.
feedback.
All right, thank you. But yeah, I think the MSTs are great and better use of the funds than the window program.
Paul and then Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'm going to actually ask some questions about the window fund now, just to get a better understanding before we vote on it. So how far back are we looking? I've read through what we have here, and I've also read what the King County is doing for theirs. How far back are we looking at for the window fund? If someone, is it with this since 2022 forward, or what is the time frame that we're looking at for someone turning in information to get reimbursed or grant, whatever we're looking at?
So we have not finalized every single detail yet, but what we have done is talk to multiple cities, county, et cetera, and collected their programs. So, their application forms, what their qualifications are, what the documentation is. And what we have decided kind of at a high level is to keep it as simple as possible. So, not have crazy long 25-page contracts, things like that, but just keep it as simple as possible with, we haven't decided, to answer your question specifically, what the time frame is, but generally what it runs the gamut from starting of COVID to right now. So I think that would definitely be up for discussion, but it totally runs the gamut what the cities and counties are doing. But from our standpoint, what we're trying to do is just keep it as simple as possible with like the minimum requirements for if you're fulfilling a grant, that you have to provide a certain amount of paperwork of why you were giving money. So just meet that threshold and not make it more complicated.
So we don't, so I'm getting 2020, 21 probably is a time frame. But so do we not have like the requirements that we're going to actually go with yet determined then?
Not 100%, no. So that's something that we would collaborate with Evergreen on. And essentially, as mentioned, there are cities that literally have 15 requirements and a 25-page contract to cities that have 4 pieces of documentation. And so we've gathered all that and essentially made the high-level decision. We will keep it as simple as possible, making sure that we do provide the requirements for ARPA funding to, show what we've granted the funds for.
Okay. Do you know what ARPA's requirement would be for this? Like, what would they require for it?
I wouldn't be able to speak to it intelligently right now, but essentially just proof of, why you were granting the funds and how you decided that. So, a business license at the most basic, a police report, documentation of, an invoice or some kind of a, hey, we replaced the window on this date. So, pretty basic information is what we'd like to keep it to.
Gotcha. I figured it'd be pretty, like those 3 items, pretty much. Then how much? Do we have like a idea of like what the max would be? Because I know the average window's just a piece of glass, $8 to $1,000, but like you said, if it's the building, is it strictly we're looking at the glass, or is there a limit to what our reimbursement or grant amount would be?
So generally, the cities that we spoke to, it's anywhere from $500 to $2,000 reimbursement. And so it's, the decisions were made very, I don't want to say arbitrarily, but there isn't like some kind of a formula. But it seems that in speaking with most of the cities and other chambers, that about $1,500 is what we settled on as being kind of a good rate. And so that way it would be a lot easier to administer to just say, up to $1,500. And then it could be used for whatever part of that, window replacement, if it was the frame or if it was the window or both, depending on how big or small the window and the frame were.
Okay. And then you gave me the answers on that one. Like I said, I like the window one because I feel like we do need to do something for some of the business around here. I get the MST, but I have a prime example of that one in Safeway. I watched that place get robbed multiple times, and they have an MST out there, and they've had it for probably over 1.5 years. So I'd be interested to find out if Safeway, just reaching out to Safeway and asking them, since they put that MST in play, have they seen a decrease? Or if it's been about the same, because like I said, they've been at least 1 year, and I literally last week watched some dude shoplift, and they were just filling it up and having the employees watch them do it. So I'm curious to using them as an example of, has it been a deterrent enough to make it worthwhile or not?
Yeah, I think I heard most of the question. I think I understand what you're asking.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think MST is going to prevent all crime. I mean, we have times where people are committing crime in front of an officer, right? And they're getting arrested. So it's not a foolproof system, but I think it does help. I think it does deter crime. And if crime does occur, we have a video recording of the crime taking place. So that's my answer to you. It's not going to work for everyone. Sometimes they're drug-induced and they're just not in the right state of mind. Some people are, they're not aware of their surroundings and they're not worried about, whether they're being recorded or not, so.
But I'd be interested in us reaching out to Safeway and literally asking a business who's had it for a year to see if they've seen the benefit of it. And, you know, that for me makes a big difference. If they're like, yes, it made sense, then for me, it makes it a lot easier to say, okay, buying more of these in the future makes sense.
Thank you, Chief. So who's watching the MST cameras, and are they monitored 24 hours a day?
They're not.
So a crime could be occurring, and let's say I'm in a parking lot, my car is broken into, I come back to my car, the windows are shattered. I ask, there's an MST right there, I ask to see the video of who might have done the damage, and will I be able to see the video as a citizen?
It can be available. Yeah, you can make a request for the video. So how they typically work is, we have volunteers who come in on their own time, and they'll be monitoring, and they have access to radio to communicate with officers in the field if they observe a crime. And we have an incident command room in the police department. We have numerous monitors, and you could put it on any one of the Safe City cameras to watch what's going on in the city. So our volunteer, Debbie, she comes in and, you know, does that. But generally, how the Safe City camera system works is that we'll have a crime. We'll have somebody who committed a robbery, and they did it at Safeway, and we'll immediately, this is one of the ways we caught our serial robber that did 5 businesses in span a week. We got him on our Safe City video. We saw him walk towards Rite Aid. We briefly lost sight of him. And then later on, the officers in the field and commanders in the station are quite often calling it in. Hey, he's walking right now, you know, eastbound on 320th, and he just appeared right by Rite Aid. So all the units now, because of Safe City camera, we know which way the suspect went. So we saturate that area. And later on, we catch the vehicle in different places. You know, like, we got him on Safe City camera, taking the plate off. When we went back, we were able to see him take the plate off in a parking lot. And then later on, after the robbery, he's putting the license plate back. So that's the value of the Safe City program. So it can be an crime in progress. So if we have these trailers out, depending on where they're at, we could tap into those cameras and continue to monitor our criminal activity. And talking with Director Fetchner, we are about 13, if we cover about 13 more signal intersections, we'll have camera system in just about every intersection in our city. So we're, with our 460 views, more than 260 cameras, we are really close to covering every intersection. And how they're used the most often are traffic accidents. Because we go to an accident and both parties says, I had the green light. We get that all the time. The camera right there just solves the issue for us. We save that video as part of the evidence. So we use it for car accidents and more than anything else, but sometimes crime in progress we use in our Safe City program. That's really unique to Federal Way because most cities does not have this robust Safe City camera program. And we're just early stages of looking at flock technology as well, how that can augment our Safe City program because we have some connectivity issue at certain intersections. So Director Fetchner and I have been talking about that. It's one of our goals to advance our system in 2024.
Yeah, I think I asked last year about that, the flock cameras, because Des Moines and Kent have them on Pack Highway. And it talked about maybe Federal Way would join them and put them on Pack Highway, so there could be a, you know, Kent, Des Moines, and Federal Way working to prevent crime along the highway. But anyway, so for the MSTs, so they're not really, they're there to prevent crime, but a crime could happen, you go back and then you're trying to find the person who committed the crime because the camera's not being watched all the time. So at the maintenance yard with the MST there, we have cameras at the maintenance yard, and yet still, either they weren't being monitored that night or what, I don't know what happened that night, but, you know, I'm not sure, you know, criminals might get desensitized to having these all over the city and might not think that they're really a deterrent.
Yeah, we have a lot of cameras. You're right. People might not be aware they're there, The benefit of MST is just visible deterrence, because it says Federal Way Police on it, and the post, the boom, has the strobe lights.
Yeah.
So it's just more of a visual deterrent. It's not going to prevent all crime, but I believe that it does prevent and deter crime. Just not 100%.
So-
There's no proof system, 100% proof system.
Then my last statement is, and I've asked this every time we talk about these MSTs, I know that there aren't any phones, emergency phones on those, and I've been told that they could be outfitted with an emergency phone. Let's say I'm robbed and they take my purse and my phone's in my purse, and I don't have a way to contact 911. If there was a phone on, I could run to the blue flashing light because I think that's safe, and there's nothing there that helps me contact the police. So I would, and I'm not an expert, you're certainly the expert, but it seems to me that maybe if there was a button to push or something that would contact 911 right away, so that if someone needs help and they don't have phone access, that maybe they could get help from 911. Just something I'm going to bring up probably every time we talk about this.
I think I understand what Deputy Mayor was saying about that emergency button. You see that a lot at university campuses throughout the nation. If something happened and student needed to call 911, they just run into that pole with a blue light, and there's a button in there that they can push, and then the security will come and help them. So is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Definitely.
I've seen those as well.
As a side light, that's what I do across the whole US. It's very doable. Didn't give you the information.
Well, the last time we talked about this, the officer said it was very doable, so,
Most people put a 911 button device or a phone or an enclosure. You push it and it goes to 911. It's very simple to do.
Great. Well, great discussion. Took us only 42 minutes. Well, it seemed to me like this thing is kind of divided. Some council members have some reservation in terms of supporting the broken window funds. Instead, they want to use that fund to buy additional MST. I'm going to look at Ryan to see and ask for his guidance. How do we do this? Because it looked like half of us want to delay on the broken window funds.
I think your choices are either to send it to consent or send it to business, or don't do anything.
I'm not, the MST program is fine with me. I don't really.
And
think that
honestly, if it is sent to consent, it sounds to me like it will get pulled. So I would advise sending it to business.
So would you like to?
I'll make a motion that we move this discussion to council business with the recommendation to spend the money on MSCs and not the window fund.
I'm open to that. I'll second that.
Okay, we have motion and second to send this item to council business. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter pass 3-0. We'll go to business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
911 button on.
Okay, we are moving on to item C, interlocal agreement to establish the Greater Federal Way Community Emergency Management Program. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you. Council Chair, Council President, Deputy Mayor, and council members. This is an odd one. It came up as we were doing the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. I spoke briefly about that, which is the plan that every 5 years must be updated and filed at the state level. Let me get this maximized here. And when we were doing the review of this, the comprehensive plan that's required at the state level to be eligible for Stafford Act reimbursement for any federally declared disasters. Again, we can get, if we have the plan and it's at the state level, it's been reviewed, we can get up to 87.5% reimbursement for a cost associated with a federal disaster. When we went to review our comprehensive plan, we found out that the interlocal agreement that established our Greater Federal Way Community Emergency Management Program had expired and not been renewed in 2015. Did a lot of research. I cannot find any reason why it was not renewed other than people just didn't know it expired. So the background on this, like I said, established in '05, it was the agreement between the City of Federal Way, the school district, the fire department, the water district, and the hospital. It expired in 2015, wasn't renewed, and we do have to have this in order to support our comprehensive emergency management program and plan. So I need an ILA to give you a comprehensive plan to make sure we do have a plan that supports the city in any emergency. We continue to operate today with the Greater Federal Way Community Emergency Management Program. We have two different committees. One is the planning committee that meets monthly. One is the oversight committee, which is the directors, the voting folks that have been that we meet twice a year. Once to provide what we recommend doing in a year, and once at the mid-year kind of as a check on how are we doing, do we need to make any changes. So with this ILA before you, it establishes the program, reestablishes the oversight committee and the planning committee. So those are the three things: establishing the program, establishing the oversight committee, establishing the planning committee. Nothing we haven't done before. It just formalizes it so that we can keep doing what we were doing and be eligible to reestablish our comprehensive emergency management plan in accordance with FEMA regulations and Stafford Act requirements. Do you have any questions about the ILA?
Seeing none?
Okay, then going forward, option one is to forward this to the city council for consent on the 5th. Option two is don't forward and provide more guidance. Mayor's recommendation is option one.
Thank you, Kevin.
I move to forward the proposed interlocal agreement to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passed 3-0. We are moving on to item D, Granicus Proposal and Master License and Services Agreement. Thomas.
Good evening, Chair Tran, committee, and council members, Deputy Mayor, Council President. Before you is a simple, I don't have a presentation or anything to make anything. This is a pretty straightforward. We've had the Amanda system. It's for our permitting software that we use for community development. We've been using that since early 2000s, and this is just a support maintenance agreement to keep that going. We haven't historically needed this, but because the Amanda software, the company that supported it originally, Calaterra, got purchased by Granicus. Granicus now wants maintenance and support agreements that span multiple years. So this is a 3-year agreement before you. Historically, it's been priced at a 3% increase per year. With the inflation and everything else, we were able to negotiate that. They wanted to hit us with 7%. We got a 4.5%, 5%, and 5.5% on these 3 years to help mitigate that for us. So that is why you see the difference in pricing per the staff report and the attached quote of $58,593.24, $61,523.25, and $64,906.26. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Mr. Dovey?
Yeah, I see it's a 3-year agreement. If we were to pay them all at one time, would we get a discount? It seems, they put these contracts together and they start out at this and they keep going up, but do they offer discounts if we decided to spend it all up in year one? And
So a lot of times we do that when we make initial purchases. We buy 3 or 5 years, as much as we can afford at the time with the project budget. Because this is a ongoing, it comes out of our maintenance and operation budget, I don't have 3 years in my M&O, so therefore I did not negotiate that part of it. But it is likely a lot of these companies do that, yes.
I understand it's not in your M&O, but if it was a discount, this body up here could change things. And I was just curious if you didn't ask the question, so we don't really know if there's any benefit.
Correct. A lot of times that is the case. They did want to do a 5-year agreement. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to lock ourselves into something, because I can kind of go back and say, hey, inflation's not the case anymore, 3 years from down the line. So I didn't want to lock us into an increaser or inflator. And so, but no, I did not ask the question because I just did not have the money. But you are right, Councilmember Doty.
Okay, thank you.
A couple questions on this one. What exactly does this software do? Is this one we log into when we come in from the public sector to the website to set up a request for permits? Because I saw this is for permitting requirements. And then also, I'm going to do two parts at the same time. Is this the best software? Is there other software out there that we've actually researched and looked into? Or like, why do we choose this particular one?
So we chose, so I'll answer the first question first. No, it's not exactly what the public logs into, it's the back end of it. So the public logs into a system that we've just went live with called My Building Permit. It's a region-wide system, kind of spearheaded by the city of Bellevue originally. There's several counties and municipalities that are a member of that. We are one of them. And so currently we are using any over-the-counter public mechanical and plumbing permit is done using the My Building Permit portal. That's a front end. So that's what the end user, the contractors, the homeowners that apply for, I want a new bath fan, new electrical circuit or something of that nature, they'll apply for that right now. We are phasing in additional permit types to that system. So the front end of that will be My Building Permit. This is on the back end. So this is for us to review plans and move them through our process so we can look up people, properties, and it's basically what community development uses for the permit intake and also tracking. In addition to that, Public Works is using it for right-of-way permit issuance, and then also code enforcement is using it to track code enforcement through on violations on particular properties as well. So it is a pretty all-inclusive system. It's a pretty comprehensive, spans multiple departments. That being said, this is something I've been with the city since 2003, and we've had the Amanda system since then. Is it the best out there? It's to be determined. It's what we have, and it's what we've been using. We have looked at replacing it, and at the time, kind of upgrading and keeping it kind of fresh and current has always been significantly less expensive, because replacing a product of this nature, and it happens to anything. Like you'll be faced with replacing the Eden system, which is our financial general ledger accounting system, here shortly because Eden is no longer supporting it. So that's something that Steve and I are working on as well, and that's going to be probably $1 million+ project. That being said, there are other products out there. We're not the only ones. City of Bellevue is on Amanda. City of Portland is on Amanda, if that gives you any perspective. But there are plenty of other ones out there. And we have looked at them, and we came back to investing more in Amanda because we've already kind of had that capital investment.
Just out of curiosity, do we have back-end tweaks that we've done to it for our system?
Over the years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so actually, we're actively, as we're rolling out the My Building Permit process, we're changing and we're tweaking the back end side of it so it works better. Not to just kind of spare you the gory details of it, the system is in need of some of that tweaking, and we're kind of working through that as we roll out the My Building Permit process, so it works better for our staff as well.
Okay. And then if we lock in this 3 years, I assume that even though it goes past the budgeting that we had, that we'll be able to rotate. This is something I'm curious to know from the council side.
Well, what I was suggesting
Three
is
to one.
maybe we have all this money sitting around, not really, but sitting in the state of Washington getting 0.000% interest. And if we could get a 10% discount, we'd be better off to pull some of that money and pay for 3 years. I probably can't do it, but it's a question.
Yeah, it would have to be in the right fund. That's our problem.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just seems to me that if we paid some of these things differently, we might save enough money to make it worthwhile.
And that's something that I'm more than happy to explore and present council an option if they want to do that in future agreements.
That would be great. All right.
Oh, let's see, pull up the thing. I'd like to move that we move this, I better read it so I do it right. Or do you have it, Paul? You want to make,
Is it Granis?
yeah,
Granicus.
Granicus. I move to forward the Granicus proposal and master license and service agreement to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Matter pass 3-0. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Item E, 2024 Senior Advisory Commission Annual Work Plan. Amy, welcome.
Hi there. Good evening, Chair, Committee, Council President, Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. My name is Amy Glandon, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Senior Advisory Commission to present our 2024 Annual Work Plan. The policy question before you tonight is, should the City Council approve the 2024 Senior Advisory Annual Work Plan? This work plan was drafted and recommended to bring before council at our regular September commission meeting. Some of my highlights that I wanted to bring before you tonight, the first one is the commission retreat. This is planned for the end of February, where the commission will be coming together for a team building exercise, as well as commission business, including the brochure. Which brings me to my next point, which is the revision and reprinting of our brochure. It's typically done in spring, reprinted in the summer. This year would be the 5th year of printing, and it's really successful in the community. It's a free resource for the seniors with local vendors and local access to services needed. The third item on this for highlight is our Senior Health and Resource Fair. So last year, the commission put on the first Senior Health and Resource Fair held at the Performing Arts Center. It took place in May. We had over 200 visitors from the community, over 45 vendors, and these were all local vendors that worked specifically with seniors and had opportunities for helping them in their current situations. We have booked the pack again for this year, coming up in 2024, on May 16th for the second annual Health and Resource Fair. And the fourth item I wanted to bring before you is our Senior Commission Connection. These are get-togethers that the Senior Commission has been putting on monthly at the community center, where they have been using the senior lounge and putting together lunches or snacks and just giving an opportunity for the senior community to come together, a community that has been very isolated since the beginning of the pandemic, and just trying to bring everybody back. This will continue in 2024, although it will move from a monthly to a quarterly experience. So, before I say thank you and ask for questions, I just want to rave a little bit about this commission. These are a hard-working group of people. They come together and they are passionate about Federal Way, about the community, and about the work that they get to do with the senior community. The seniors are often an overlooked and underserved community, and with the work of this commission, they're being seen, they're being heard, and they're given an opportunity to advance and be rewarded for their lives. So I'm really grateful to work with them, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Amy. Deputy Mayor and then Council President.
First of all, I'd like to thank Amy for all of her work with the Senior Commission and encourage you to read the Federal Way Mirror. There's quite the nice article in the Mirror about the last Senior Connection meeting, which the Arts Commission came and shared information on public art and Federal Way. So please look at that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Amy, I agree that they're a very hardworking, a very dedicated group of, and they're working well. And thank you to Deputy Mayor Honda for being part of that commission. Are we going to do a senior a holiday tree and putting the seniors' names?
So this year, the Senior Commission opted to work with this Federal Way Senior Center to help Shelley and her team with building goodie bags for the seniors that show up. So these are items very similar to what we did last year with Avalon: gloves, hats, chapstick, hand lotions, that sort of thing. I was away for a period of time, and so there wasn't a lot of movement towards this, but it is an item that's up for business next week, on the 13th, when we have our next meeting, to discuss how we can contribute and what we can do with that, since we are kind of running short on the holiday season.
Sure, let us know what we can do, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, we should probably take this roadmap and share it with all our other commissions. It's a great work plan. It's actually to the point and shows what they're going to do. But I don't remember, is there a budget for this organization? Because I don't see anything on the report of how much the budget is.
Oh, I apologize. I thought that was included.
Maybe I misread it.
The biennium budget approved $5,000 for 23 and 24 for this commission.
You said 5,000?
Yes,
Okay, each year?
yes.
Okay, okay.
And we did not use that last year.
How much did you use?
None.
None?
Well, explain why.
That's even a
Yes.
better example.
We have, along with this commission, we have a really incredible sponsor in Steel Lake Presbyterian. The Reverend there, Colleen, she has been a huge supporter of the senior community, and for the last few years has been the sole sponsor for the brochure printing and covering all of the costs with that, which is why we built in a budget for the commission, because of the rising costs of printing. But we've been fortunate enough that Colleen and Steel Lake Presbyterian has been keeping up with the costs, and so we didn't have to touch the budget. We have it in place. We did utilize a couple hundred of it in the last few months as we've been doing these senior commission connections, but we haven't really, I mean, it's been a lot less than we expected.
But we may need it one day.
Yes.
Steel Lake Pres has just been absolutely amazing. They even helped support, they were a sponsor for the health fair also. But, for how long that's gonna happen, we don't know. So we do need to keep the budget there just in case we need it. And I believe really strongly that if we support any commission and they have an event that requires funding, that if we're going to pass their work plan, then we need to pass a budget that supports that event so that the commission members are not responsible for raising the money for that event.
Lydia?
Yeah, thank you, Amy, for working with them and for your presentation. And I think from what we saw, and especially the health fair, I think they did a fabulous job. I would like to, some of these events are very interesting, and so I'd like the council to be included or invited if we could be there. I think
Absolutely.
It would be a great idea. So if you could maybe help put it on the calendar or just let us know.
For sure.
So, thank you so much.
So Amy, I do have a question. For the amount of money that you did not use, or the commission did not use, is that money gonna stay with the commission for to the following year, or is that returned back to the general fund?
Sorry, no.
Just try to help. Okay, I got the answer. Thank you, Steve.
I'd like to make the motion that we forward the proposed 2024 Senior Advisory Commission and Work Plan to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter pass 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to item F, Washington Department of Correction Master Agreement Amendment. Autumn. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and committee and council members. Before you this evening is the Washington Department of Corrections Master Agreement Amendment. We are currently under an agreement with them for litter, garbage cleanup throughout the city, abandonment, encampment cleanup, and other overgrown weeding and things of that nature. This amendment takes us through 2026. It also gets our annual agreements in line. Right now, the master agreement was expiring in June, but our attachments were expiring in September or November. So we're trying to just clean that up and move ourselves forward for the next 2.5 years. This also extends a $75,000 budget, which has been the current for every single year. And then attachment A will be up for negotiation annually. That typically won't come back to you. That just gives us a chance to update contact information, change budgets. If we were to change from the $75,000 annually between now and 2026, we'd bring it back to you. But with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Yeah, a couple quick questions on this one. So how, do we maximize this program? Like,
We haven't fully maximized it in the past, but our intent moving forward as we've come out of COVID, through COVID and through sort of them reinstating how things work within King County, they weren't getting a lot of participation as they had seen in years prior, but they're starting to see more engagement, so we should see more of a maximization in 24 through 26.
and then I was looking through the contract, and it says $25 per day for each employee. That's insane. Is that for an 8-hour day, or is that per hour?
They typically work 8 hours-ish, it just depends, but it is for the full day. So even if they were able to do 10 hours, but they're kind of limited. They usually go and pick up their trucks in Seattle at about 7 a.m. They come down to the pickup site somewhere about 8:30, and they're usually on one of our sites about 9 a.m. And because they have to go drop off and then return their vehicles to Seattle, they work on site from about 9 to 2:30, 3 o'clock. Sometimes if they're a little bit closer or they have trucks already down this way, we can maximize more time, but.
Right. And then my last question is, who actually makes up the crews? Are they actually people who are incarcerated right now, or are they doing house arrest, or what?
A lot of
says
it is
DOC.
ones that are paying off fines
Okay.
that have been recommended to go do work crew cleanup to try and get rid of some of those fines in lieu of, jail time or major things.
What happens to the $75,000, the part of the money that does not get spent, then? Is that same as the last one, just goes back into our funds, or does it slosh over for next year?
I will let Steve answer, but my understanding is that we've rolled it over each year.
I'm not sure about that, so we didn't prepare our answers. That's a maybe.
Maybe? Okay. Yeah, I definitely would say we need to maximize that aspect, especially with the camping cleanups. Thank you.
Council President.
Thank you. I believe that Judge Larson wants to do the same with people in our own municipal court. And we were going to talk about that possibly for next year as far as starting a program here where people can work off their fines.
Our municipal court actually can refer people directly to this program, and we have an opportunity by extending this agreement and doing an amendment to deepen that partnership between the municipal court and the Department of Corrections, so that way they're able to just funnel them directly and work right here in the city.
Well, would you then speak with Judge Larson to see how we can do that and bring that
Absolutely.
back?
Yep, absolutely.
No one else? Okay. I move to forward the proposed master agreement amendment to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter pass 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. Okay, we are moving on to item G, Drove of Trovy Apartment MFTE contract. Keith, welcome. How did you say that name? Trouve?
He's going with Trouve. That would not have been my, that would have not been what I would have thought, so I'm glad he's here.
Is that French or something?
They'll change it anyway.
Good evening, Committee Chair Tran, committee members McDaniel and Dovey, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and City Council members. This evening, we have the Trouve Apartment multifamily tax exemption contract in front of the City Council. So the policy question is, should the City Council execute a contract for an 8-year multifamily dwelling unit limited property tax exemption, MFTE, for the Trouve Apartments? So background, MFTE is a property tax waiver program. It's established as a tool to incent the production of multifamily housing in designated residential target areas. Earlier this year, the council extended the city's multifamily tax exemption program, which is Federal Way Revised Code 3.30, to the BC zone. Prior to that, it was only allowed in the city center core and the city center frame, and Trouvé is located in the BC zone. So Trouvé Apartments, it is new construction. It's located at the southeast corner of First Avenue South and South 348th Street. It's a mixed-use project, 9 residential buildings and 1 retail building. There's 233 units with a mix of studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms, and then there's a standalone retail building along 348th. So the process, and the reason why we're here this evening, is the way the process is laid out. It's actually dictated by statute. The first step is to make an application. So they have made their application, and that comes into the administration. And that needs to be done prior to certificate of occupancy. So right now, they are waiting on their certificates of occupancy for that project to go through this process. The second part, step 2, is there needs to be a contract executed by the city council and the property owner. So that's what's in front of you this evening, is to approve moving forward with that contract. Once that contract is executed, the next step is to issue the conditional certificate, and then they get certificate of occupancy, and then finally, that certificate is finalized and recorded with King County. So what would this mean? What exactly does this mean? So the owner, if it's approved, the owner does not have to pay property tax on the eligible residential improvements for 8 years. So let me be clear about that. So the property, so the way the assessor works is property taxes are divided by both the land value and the constructed improvements value, right? So the building and the land. So what this exemption would be is on the value of the buildings, not the land. So the land they still pay property tax on, and it will go up in price over the next 8 years, and they will pay whatever property tax on that land. The building and the value of the improvements is what they get the exemption for. And that's just for the buildings that have the residential component to it. So their standalone retail building on 348th, that would not get that property tax exemption, so they will have to pay taxes on the improvements for that as well as the property it sits on. The mayor's recommendation is to forward the proposed contract to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval. And with that, I'm here for any questions you might have.
We have Deputy Mayor, and then Council President, and Lydia.
Thank you. I'm just curious, when a property owner has this program going for them, do they actually reduce the rental fees so that the folks living there actually pay less to live there? And how do we prove that?
I'm going to guess that they do not. The rental fees, assuming it's market, the apartments are market rate, it's whatever the market will bear. So if they can get $2,200 for a 1-bedroom, they'll charge $2,200 for a 1-bedroom. If they can get $2,400 for a 1-bedroom, they will charge that. The fact that they have receive this property tax exemption, the way that it affects the developer, and if you want, I can ask Brett to come up and chat with you, but the way I understand it is before I ever break ground or even potentially buy a piece of property, I'm going to do a pro forma on that project. So I'm going to put in all of my costs to design and build the project, and then that's going to translate to a certain amount of rent I need to get on each unit to make it profitable for me as a developer to do that. If I can build in the fact that I'm not paying property tax on a portion of that project, that's going to go into my calculation of what I need to then get out from a rent standpoint. So it's really about whether they build the project or not ultimately what the tenants end up paying.
However, this project was built before they knew that they could do this.
This is a little bit of an odd duck for us, yes.
So it would be great if rental fees could be reduced when they're in these kind of programs. to help those paying the rental fees. Thank you.
Council President,
Oh,
Lydia?
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's actually why what I wanted to say was the fact that this project was already built and constructed. And so hopefully then they would put that into consideration when rent is calculated or figured, because then it would definitely help our residents. So this is only for 8 years, correct?
That is what the application is for, yes, an 8-year program.
And it's non-renewable, or it doesn't change, or that's it? After the 8 years, then what?
So I believe you can ask for an extension. Oh, Cheney's giving me the nod. So I think that if, once the 8 years has expired, if they want to ask for an extension, I think that's something that we can approve. I don't think we have to. I don't think there's an obligation for us to. Did you want to? I have staff here that might be more knowledgeable than I am, so.
Actually, perfect timing.
Calling up the big guns.
Hi, good evening, Cheney Scotson. If the project chooses to apply for an extension, they wouldn't be able to do the 8-year. It would only be for the 12-year, and there would be an affordability requirement.
For the additional 4 years,
For it-
there would be an affordability.
No, I'm sorry, it would go from like 0 to 8 years, right? The one that they've applied for and that we're working on right now. When that 8 years completes, they can apply for a 12-year extension. They can't apply for another 8-year and not provide affordable housing. If they want to extend the program, it has to be for 12 years and have an affordability requirement.
So the first 8 years do not have an affordability requirement, but if they do extend, it has to be for 12 years.
Yeah,
So
at
there's no
least,
other-
and include an affordability requirement. Like, that's not, like, extending is not required, but if we are going to grant an extension, it will have an affordability requirement.
So can we also ask an affordability requirement prior, for the first 8 years?
Not for the first 8 years.
No.
So we have two programs right now in code. There's the 8-year program that does not require affordable housing, and this is similar to a lot of cities and across the state and in the state statute. There's no affordability requirement. And then the 12-year has a 20% affordability, I believe at 80% AMI. So this developer selected the 8-year instead of doing the 12-year. But if this developer wants to extend after that 8 year is over, they don't get to do another 8-year for no affordability. It'll only be, they're only eligible or only able to extend with a 12-year, which provides the affordable housing.
Does that mean they could go for 4 more years or 12, a total of 20?
A total of 20.
Well, I didn't know. So they could go 8 years and then say, hey, by the way, we want to extend it, and then they would have 12 more years, and 20% would be affordable at 80% AMI.
Yeah, and I don't know if Keith already
Or-
mentioned this. This project also has is bound by our inclusionary zoning requirement. So
Yeah.
there are income restricted units in this project
Okay.
that are not tied to any, well, I guess maybe they are tied to duration. Is it 50 years now? 50 years. So because of another section in code unrelated to the MFTE program, there are some affordable units.
Thank you.
That's okay.
How many? Out of 233, how many affordable units?
Our code's 4% now of the total units.
Thank you.
But I think when they were done, it was 5. So they're 5%.
5% or 5 units?
5%.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Jack Walsh?
Yeah, just a question. In 8 years, then it will be based on the property tax would be based on the assessment at that time in 8 years, correct? Or is it based on the property value now, which is that 1% increase for those 8 years?
Let me see if I understood your question. So right now, the exemption would be based on the value of the improvements that are going to go on the property. So if like, for example, if the assessor valued that project at like $200,000, I just picked a number, they would then give them they would not charge them the tax on that part of this.
Right.
But the land itself, and as the land goes
Yeah.
up over time, they pay that.
Right, but now with the improvements,
Yes.
with the improvements, the residential part,
Yes.
8 years from now,
Yes.
That'll be assessed,
Yes.
and they'll start paying taxes on that.
Yes.
Will those taxes be based on what that assessment is 8 years from now?
Yes.
Or
At that
what
time.
it is now with just the 1%?
No, it'll
we
be,
can,
it'll
you
be
know.
based on the value at that time.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, and then Council President, and then Mr. Jack Dovey.
Just a couple clarifications, and I'll hold most of mine for the general meeting, because I will request it to be pulled out. So on this item, the building is not being taxed again, but when it's not being taxed, there is no state tax, city tax, school tax, no tax to collect, correct?
No tax.
No tax whatsoever, okay. So if we put a bunch of kids in there, that part of the property for the school tax is actually not going to be utilized for those children then, correct?
So,
8 years.
yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, and then, like I said, I'll hold mine for the next conversation. Thank you.
So could you explain to us again why we created this program in the first place when it doesn't have an affordability requirement?
So the purpose for this tool is to try and get more multifamily housing in the city. So it's one of our tools that helps development actually make ends meet so that they build here. And I think part of the reason, I mean, this has been on the books since looks like 2001, maybe? We have had none. There's been nobody has taken advantage of this tool up to this point. So, this is something where, and this section of code requires us to kind of monitor this and report out on its usage. So at some point, if the council, if it's determined that we have plenty of active multifamily projects in town, we can always actually pull this out if we want to. There's nothing that mandates us to have this program. It's simply a tool that we've elected to use.
So was the purpose then to encourage development in the downtown core or business core rather than in the neighborhoods?
It is, yes. So right now, we have, the statute requires the city to create what's called targeted areas. And the targeted areas we've chosen is city center core, city center frame, and the BC zone. The RM zone, which is our other multifamily zone, is not an area that's eligible for multifamily tax exemption.
Correct. So this doesn't sound like it's a roaring success, but it sounds like it's an available tool that other cities have that we wanted to use, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I guess, this would help us reach our housing targets that we have, 40,000 units by 2044?
11,260 units by 244.
And of that, 5,000 has to be market rate or above or higher level.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have an overabundance of low-income housing types.
So this will help us reach our targets, absolutely. And this was one of the things that our housing action plan identified as something we should work on.
Thank you.
Jack.
I have a clarifying question on what Jack Walsh asked. If the property today, you use 200,000, so if it was 200,000 over the next 8 years, we would get the taxes of 200,000 plus 1%. I mean, as it grows, we can only cap it at 1%, correct?
No, it doesn't.
Well, that's what Jack was asking.
Maybe I misunderstood. So again, you have to think about this as dirt and buildings,
No,
right?
I understand
The
that.
buildings actually depreciate over time. So 8 years from now, that building's going to be worth less than it is today. But the
Well,
property itself.
inflation?
But see, I would disagree with you. It would seem that the building would go, wouldn't the building go up in value? I mean, you see like the building that sold here in Federal Way the other day, they bought for 800,000, sold for 2.5 million. So that tells me the value went up.
So typically, the improvements on the property depreciate as they get older.
I've never seen that in my house.
I'll send you some
Really? I would-
snippets from the assessor's
Okay.
page.
Okay, because the reason I was asking the question, if it was 200,000 and in 8 years it was worth 400,000.
Yeah.
We'd actually get more tax money in on the higher assessed value because we weren't limited by the state growth of the 1%.
So the way that this is supposed to work is, and this is an odd case, so this one's not a great example for us to use. But if I'm a developer, multifamily developer, and I don't think that I can get the rents in federal way, then I don't build here, right? And so the value of that property, and let's assume it's vacant, that value of that property goes up as vacant property over 8 years, but it's what it is, right? Somebody ends up building on it, and even though you're giving them a pass on the construction improvements, the building itself, the value of the property is going to go up higher than if nobody built on it over that 8-year period. So in theory, we're ahead because they've chosen to build, and they being somebody. But then after 8 years, you've got that multi-million-dollar project on that piece of property that then we get the taxes for. It's kind of like the conversations we've been having with tax increment financing. There's a gap, there's a little piece where you're going to miss out on something, but in theory, you wouldn't have had it anyway because the pro forma wouldn't have penciled out for them to have built.
You just confirmed what I was asking.
Okay.
The property's more valuable, so the tax money you get is more than you would if you did it the normal way.
That's the theory, yes.
Okay, great. You confirmed what I thought.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Forget it. Jack Walsh.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, hey, it's, things may depreciate, but still inflation goes up. I mean, I bought my house 35 years ago.
It's not worth less now?
Paid $69,000 for it, had it built. The lot was $19,000, the house was $69,000 total. So the construction cost was $50,000. Now it's valued at almost $500,000. And I know that so if it's $500,000, take that out, that land cost or that housing cost of, construction cost of $50,000. I know that lot hasn't increased from $19,000 to $450,000. It's increased a lot, but not that much. So anyway, I mean,
I'm going to go ahead and disclaim I'm not a tax expert and don't pretend to be one.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Keith, how many multifamily developments do we have in the city currently using this program?
This would be the first. So there's no other projects that are, nobody's asked, and so there are none.
Do we anticipate the downtown development, Sound Transit, and Town Square using these? Or
Yes.
whatever, not Town Square, TC3.
I would guess that all the projects coming forward in the zones we've targeted for, so there's no reason not to, I guess let me start there, is for the 8-year, where there's no added affordable housing obligation, there's no reason not to apply for this because there's no downside. Going from the 8-year to the 12-year, a developer would have to decide if that's advantageous for them or not, but there's no reason not to. So I would be shocked if any of the projects that come in the next, 10 years don't have this tied to them.
So Kids Corner, is there an application or is there a multifamily development going in there?
Too early to tell. So right now, they have asked for a development agreement on Kids Corner, and we are just slowly starting to turn that wheel just because we have some staffing resource issues. We don't have enough staff. So the idea is maybe in the first half of next year, we might be getting through a development agreement for Kids Corner, and it will likely have multifamily associated with it.
And could they apply for this?
They could, its own BC.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Look like we don't have any more questions. May I have motion, please?
I'll make the motion in a second here. I gotta find it.
I got it, I'll make the motion.
You got it?
Yeah. Make sure I got the right one. Yep. I move to forward the proposed contract to December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter pass 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to item H, T-Mobile Site Lease Agreement, PBA Twin Lakes. Ryan,
And Chair, I'm gonna recuse myself from this discussion and vote.
so notice.
Good evening, everybody. I have the next three items, I believe. The first two you've seen before if you've been to LUTC in the last couple months. These items went through committee, through the Land Use Committee, and then were pulled at council because the entity that was negotiating on behalf of T-Mobile, who's the other side of this contract, proposed some changes that were ultimately denied. So we basically are back here with the exact same contract as before. So the first one is a site lease at what we're calling the BPA Twin Lakes area. Twin Lakes is because it's somewhat near. It's like 1,000 feet away from the Twin Lakes Park and Ride. So that's just what we identify it as. It's a renewal of a lease that's pre-existing for mobile communication equipment that's on a pole there, and it will be for $3,745 a month with an annual increase of 4% each year. Are there any questions about that?
Council President?
Is that money targeted? It just goes in the general fund, but it isn't targeted for anything in
It
particular?
is not. It's general fund
If it's
money.
in a park, then it's in the Parks Fund, is
No.
that correct? No?
No,
It's just general fund?
correct.
Just curious.
All right.
Just real quick, there's no other changes then, other than those?
There are no changes. This is
Okay.
as it went through the committee last time.
No
And
problem.
frankly, it's very similar to the last contract that we had with them. It's just an increase for inflation.
Gotcha. All right, we're good, all right. Committee. Yeah, I'll make the motion. I move to forward the proposed T-Mobile LLC site lease agreement at Southwest 348th Street and the BPA Trail to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter pass 2-0.
Thank you. The next is another site lease, also with T-Mobile. Like I said before, this one also went through committee. Same exact entity was negotiating on behalf of T-Mobile West. This one is for a pole at the Lakota Park. It's for the amount of $3,603 per month, and it has a 4% inflator each year.
Council
So,
President?
Chair, I'm just wondering if the proper way to say the approval would be 2 in favor plus 1 recusal.
Thank you for pointing that out.
And can I make one suggestion? Since it's gonna be on the consent agenda, I'm gonna have to pull it because I can't vote on it. Maybe you should move it to council business. Okay. Then that way, the meeting would go faster.
Council, well, and that's true. It's actually logistically more difficult for staff to do it that way. If we're going to pull it anyway, we can just do it orally at the meeting. Otherwise, we got to rewrite the agenda.
Okay.
So, but it's up to you.
We'll just leave it on, I'm pulling two, so we'll do all the polls at once.
Yeah.
I move to forward the proposed T-Mobile LLC site lease agreement for the Dakota Park to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter pass 2-0 with 1 recusal.
So,
You have the next one.
yep. This next one is more substantive. This is a proposed update to the indemnification section of the Federal Way Revised Code. Since the city was created, and this actually predates some of the city, it's been on the books since 1989. It was, I think, the third thing that council passed as they were setting up the city. The language that was used to describe indemnification policy for the city was, I found it everywhere. It's very common in other cities, and it made a lot of sense at the time. The proposed changes are kind of just to recognize the realities of how we've done this in the past 20-plus years, 30 years. So the main changes that I'm proposing is, one, to expressly include volunteers in the indemnification. We have every once in a while in volunteers, or if we're having an event, but down in the police department, we have pretty regular volunteers that work for the city, and they should be covered by indemnification for their official acts. Expressly include spouses when marital property is involved. So, as you know, Washington State is a community property state, and if an officer gets sued for professional conduct, often the spouse of that officer is attached to the lawsuit. And this would expressly make it, we've already been doing this for years and years and years, long predating my run as the city attorney, but it would be nice to have it expressly stated in the code. The code is also drafted somewhat oddly to make it sound like I am personally representing the city on each one of these litigation matters. I don't believe a city attorney for the city has actually gone to court and litigated a complex tort litigation case in the history of the city. We hire professional attorneys that this is what they do for a living. It's a full-time job, usually for more than one attorney, to represent the city in these matters. So just, this would make it more clear that the city attorney has authority to hire outside counsel to represent us in tort litigation. One good example of, well, I don't need to give you examples, but routinely we're spending, $80,000 or $90,000, which equates to, at $400 a man hour, you can see how many man hours that is for an attorney. So we don't have the staff to do it, and I would argue that the expertise, city attorneys are more jack of all trades. We're kind of advisors, and then these people are professional litigators, where charisma and telling a good story and tracking voluminous discovery is their specialty. And we help with that process, but we don't actually argue the cases. And the last is the ordinance would create a presumption that we're going to defend employees, but it also sets up, which is what we've been doing forever, but it also sets up a process for if council does not want to indemnify an employee, very quickly, for example, if there's a shooting that we believe was a crime instead of justified shooting, then the council could vote to not indemnify the person in that case. So that would be an official act of the council. It hasn't never happened in the history of the city, but if there was a case where it's clear that the conduct was misconduct, that it's outside the scope of employment, council would make it clear that right from the outset that we would not be paying for defense. So those are the main changes. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Paul and then Jack.
Yeah, just real simplify, indemnification. Can you give me a generalized definition in layman's terms?
Yes, that means that the city will pay for the cost of legal defense and then the cost of any judgment against the individual for official acts. So where it comes up the most for us are traffic accidents and police torts. So if an officer injures a person arresting them or uses force lawfully, often we are sued for that, and then the city would pay for both the law firm to defend them and also, if we lose, any legal consequences.
Gotcha. And just out of curiosity, do you know how many cases we have on average a year? Or is it?
I don't have the account right now off the top of my head. Generally speaking, I would say it's about 8 or 9.
Okay, thank you.
Jack.
So, what you explained, I agree, it makes perfect sense to me that we need to clarify this. But the last statement where, I don't know how you said it, if there was a crime that somebody committed, then the council would, have to vote on it or have, I think that's what I heard you say. I think, to me, that is a problem, because what the norm 20 years ago versus the norm today and what it could be in 20 years. And if the council's deciding on that, it's a gray area where I don't think it supports our employees correctly. So that last little part that you talked about, and maybe I'm thinking into it too much, but it would, to me, need to be very lined out in this ordinance so that somebody who becomes an employee doesn't feel like if this body up here changes its thought, or, 7 other people are up here that have a totally different idea of what's black and white and gray. I mean, to me, it's not firm enough for me to say I would support that last part of what you talked about for indemnification.
Maybe I should explain that part a little.
Yeah, maybe.
So, to be clear, this is a shift in policy. This is it's a flipping of the presumption. Right now, council is supposed to affirmatively state every single time that we're going to defend an employee. And if council doesn't do that, technically, we're not supposed to indemnify them. That has not happened for a very long time. So instead, this creates a presumption which is the standard for most public entities, that we assume that the conduct is within the scope of employment, and therefore we will indemnify them. It's going to have to be a pretty obvious case. The majority of council right up front says there's no way that was within the scope of employment. Then we could make it clear from the get-go that we would not be indemnifying that employee. Additionally, council doesn't necessarily have to make that call right up front. If after we hear the entire case and facts come out that this was beyond the scope of employment. And to be clear, we cannot lawfully indemnify people who are acting outside of the scope of their employment. So if council makes that determination later on, we could retroactively say, we're not paying for that. So this is actually more beneficial than the current policy for employees, because it creates a presumption which has never been contradicted in the history of our city, that the actions were within the scope of employment. Is that?
Yeah, I
more
understand what
clear?
you're saying, but I would argue that it actually puts more uncertainty into our policy for employees than it actually clears it up. I mean, just from my standpoint, I mean.
Yeah, it actually is
you
the
look at
opposite.
you look at what happened across the country for the last 10 years, and there's been a lot of surprises.
Right.
That you would have never seen 20 years ago. And
Maybe I'm not explaining it
Yeah, I
well.
don't think you're explaining it
So my
very well
point
to
is,
me.
right now, the current policy is, for every single one of these cases,
We have to
council
vote.
needs to take a vote.
Yep.
So there's uncertainty every single time. Under this new policy, unless council takes action, we will be indemnifying. So, I mean, it's
Okay.
exactly the opposite of.
Okay, so maybe I didn't understand it. So, right now, for an identification, anything, we have to vote on it today.
That's what the current policy says.
And this, and
Frankly,
thi-
it hasn't been followed very well.
Okay, and this new one will say, we
presume.
don't have to vote on it. We're just indemnifying our employees unless it comes to us to vote
We're
on
going to
it.
presume or assume
We're going to presume that they're
that
indemnified.
it was within the scope of employment and that we should indemnify them.
Okay.
Unless council decides otherwise.
Okay, okay, well, that's a little different than the way I understood it.
Fair.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Paul and then Deputy Mayor.
You pretty much was what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. So when we go out to hire police officers, this is something that they look for? And do other cities have that same clause in there? So, or will we look better to them with
I
this
would-
clause?
There is some variation. That, the language that we're using currently, like I said, was very common in 1989 when we stole it from whoever we stole it from. So some people haven't updated it, but the vast majority of the ones I looked at have flipped to this
Okay.
presumption. So I would say it puts us as more competitive. Frankly, I've never heard an officer say that this is the breaking point as to why we're not going to work at the city, because it's assumed we're doing this already. And we have been doing this for a very long time. We've never not defended a police officer. But to me, I just want to clean up the language to make it consistent with what has been happening.
Right. Okay, thank you.
But this also could be for a parks maintenance guy that's driving a truck that gets in a wreck.
Yes.
I mean,
I keep
you
using
you
police
automatically
officer 'cause
think a
it's-
police officer, but it's anybody
So
that,
that's a good example. So if an employee, a Parks employee, is drunk off his rocker
Yeah.
and goes and drives a car, that's beyond the scope of employment. He's probably not going to get indemnified. I'm sorry, there was one other thing that I did not point out that I think is very important, and that is part of the reason this came up and the reason I took this opportunity to try to fix all of these problems, which I've been, this is on my list of things to fix for a while, but I'm also I want to expressly extend indemnification to some non or extrajudicial proceedings. So currently, every time there's a police use of force that results in a death, we have a coroner's inquest. And that costs the city, $80,000 or $90,000 to defend in legal fees. And it's kind of a limbo. It's not it's not a tort, it's not a civil lawsuit, it's kind of its own weird legal thing. But we obviously need to defend the officers that are involved in that process. So this expressly will allow us to do that, and it also extends to certification proceedings. So there's a few extrajudicial, I would say, non-court proceedings that are very court-like and require lawyers that would be covered by this policy. So I should have mentioned that earlier.
Lydia, and then Council President. Oh, Council President, go ahead.
I think we purloined this language from Kirkland.
Yeah, a lot of people used it.
I know. So, but my question is, we are indemnified as well, the council acting within.
Yeah, this
scope
applies
of
to
our-
all officers and employees of the city.
So we better not go against what you advise us because we may not be indemnified, correct?
It's true.
Well, anyway, thank you.
All right, look like we don't have any more questions. May I have a motion, please?
I move to forward the proposed ordinance to first reading on December 5th, 2023.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter pass 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. The next item K, utility tax rebate program update. This is for discussion only.
All right, I can do this. Thank you. This, I know, is a very popular program, often in our monthly financial reports between January and May. Some of you always ask, how are we doing? How are we reaching out to people and how are they responding? And this is a little bit premature, but we don't have a December meeting. But I want you to know that we in finance have been working on getting this program ready to roll out for '24. So let me present to you what we are going to be presenting to the public. If you were to go to the city website, navigate to the finance page, you would find the utility tax rebate program. And we have, this is not fancy, it's not flashy, it's not particularly graphically interesting, but what we are trying to do is be simple and clear. And so our page here tells someone who wants to find out about our utility tax rebate program. Now, there's a little red 4 there that needs to be correct. We still have last year. If you go on the website right now, it's still got last year's information, but between now and December, we'll get this updated. But I want to point out to you that there are 4 clickable links because we are trying to put everything that anybody might ask. We want to anticipate their questions and also make it easy as possible for them to apply. So if I were to click on any of those 4 links, let me show you what they lead to. The first one is what we would call a flyer. It's a one-page simple thing. You could print it out. You could hand it out at people. We have taken it to city functions. We've taken it to the state of the city, and we've taken it to various public meetings. But it's also paperless. It's a flyer. It gives you kind of everything on one page. And it's on the city website. So that's the first thing that is kind of the one-page explanation. Now, the second thing is the ordinance, the enabling ordinance back in 2021. Back in '21, some of you were here, we tried to make it simple and easy by making a couple of things simpler. We fixed the amount for each of the utilities, $25 for electricity, $20 for gas, $15 for water or sewer. We made it a fixed low-income scale that comes from the housing, from the HUD. I can't remember what that stands for, but it's specific to King County. And we reduced the documentation. We only require a single utility bill of any given utility, not 12. So that's, that's the ordinance behind it. If somebody wants to know the eligibility, that would be the third clickable link. We have to have a fair standard for how we administer, how we refund utility taxes. And the standard is household income. Based on the number of people in the household, there's a sliding scale. This scale right here on your screen is the one that's going to be live on our website by January 1st. And the documentation that we require an application, and we require a tax return. All we ask is that they share what they told the IRS. We take that at face value. We require 1 month of each bill, a bill that shows that they paid the previous bill, so that way they paid the utility tax. And then the due date on the ordinance, for some reason, it doesn't say May 31st. In the ordinance, it says May 30th of each year, so that's what we're going with. And the application, we need them to tell us who they are so we know who to make the check out to. We want to know whether we mail it or they want to pick it up. And this is where there is a checklist that gives them just a reminder of all the things that they need to include. Now, why am I giving you this presentation? I think many of you are aware that in the past we have seen a diminishing number of people that have been taking advantage of the program. We've been seeing fewer people apply, and we've been rebating less money. So let's talk about the outreach. Every year, we always send out letters to past participants. We think those are the most probable people that will be participating. We take materials to the Senior Commission. That would be a stack of flyers. And then we also take materials to city events. Our outreach is an email link to the city website page. Word of mouth, if anybody asks you or you want to talk to people, tell them, go to the city website. And I've got, at the very bottom, I've got something new there. We have a communications program in our mayor's office. David Solano has agreed to help be part of our marketing department. I'm not saying that the accounting and finance people are your best marketers in the city. We're going to get some help this year, though. So we're going to try and extend our outreach a little bit farther that way. So the next step is just to point to people towards the program, and let me show you here. If you go to the city website, click on Inside City Hall and click on the Finance Department. That's the first way you would find it. But also, if you just type utility tax in that search box, the very first thing that's going to pop up. Anybody can go to our website, type in utility tax. I mean, they could also do a utility tax rebate program. This is still the very first thing that pops up. So we're trying to make it really easy to find. We will be having this ready by the time January 1st rolls around. Because remember, one of the things that you have to apply for it is a copy of your tax return. So we wanted to let you know that we are working on it, thinking about it, planning for our outreach. This is just informational discussion, open for any discussion.
Thank you. Paul, and then Deputy Mayor, and then Jack Dovey.
Yeah, a couple questions. So I'm looking at the amounts. Are the amounts a one-time or monthly, or how is, I've tried reading through it, but I don't, what's the?
The amounts are the maximum is going to be $100 per person if they hit all of the utilities. It's so the $15 one is for the whole year.
Okay.
We're not rebating the cost of their utilities. We're rebating our utility tax on the utilities. So it's the city portion. That's why we're trying to do our part.
Gotcha. So it's a one-time payout?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And out of curiosity, because I'm looking at the numbers that you just showed, finance seems like a weird department to be running this program. Community service would have made more sense for it. Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you can answer that, but why is finance running it and not community service, who has the outreach built in?
My answer is we inherited it, and I don't know the answer, but we're a team inside City Hall, and we're appealing to our help with communications. Maybe because it seems like it's an accounts payable function, we have to make sure all the elements are there, and then we disperse. It's fairly simple and straightforward, but the outreach part would be our weakness, right?
Yeah. Well, I get you guys have to cut checks, but I would have just figured the community service would be taking care of it and then having you guys cut checks, but I don't know. And what is our actual fund? What is the actual fund that we put aside for us? I've seen what we spent, but,
We don't have a fund. It's just an
Okay.
expense line, yeah.
gotcha.
And it's pretty minimal.
$905 last year, or this year, yeah, very small.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So before COVID, we had a couple hundred people.
Right.
You know, and we tried to make it easier, and
Mm-hmm.
we made it easier, and we had less people apply. So I'm not sure why that happened, but I would say maybe it needs to be flashy, so people see, this is where you go to. I mean,
And we
get
are,
your attention so that they're.
yeah, and I think David may help with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would also, maybe we can ask for people who have used the program in the last couple of years since we've changed it for feedback and see what it is that they have found more useful or less useful. And I would suggest that we go not only to the Senior Commission, the Diversity Commission, Human Services Commission, Parks Commission, all of the commissions, Arts Commission, they all have community outreach. And say, this is a program, get people involved.
And we can print quantities of those flyers and give them to anybody. Happy to do that, yes.
And it's
yes.
very possible people that are using this program do not have access to the internet. Not everyone does. I would also suggest, I think last year that the outreach is really good. I have no
We
problems.
did a better
with-
job of it last year.
I
yeah.
thought it was really, really good last year.
Yeah.
But still, we had less people, and that was really frustrating.
Right.
But I would have applications at the libraries, at senior centers, at the community center. I would just blanket the city with them, because this is a program meant to help people.
Sure.
And we know people need help, especially with what we're facing now. Times are getting tough for a lot of people. So I just thought the outreach was good last year. I'm hoping that maybe David has a magical touch and we can reach more people.
And we agree, and we are starting early, and we're briefing you. It's a good practice to be able to tell anybody what I just told you.
So thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
And I will ask every month, how does it go? How did it?
We'll make sure we report it. Thank you.
Jack?
So maybe my question's going to sound really harsh after hearing Deputy Mayor Honda, but to give away $900 on something that's so stinking easy, why are we even wasting our time? We spent more than $900 in this meeting with all the salaries and everything, and we're arguing how to give $900 away? And wouldn't it be easier to go statistically and go to the county and get the tax returns of people that are on different programs, just send them $100? I mean, this program is great, sounds good, but man, it sure cost us a lot of money and a waste of time, and nobody's taking the free money. So maybe after this year, we should reevaluate and
Well,
go.
it's an ordinance. It's been given to finance. We're trying to make it
Yeah,
work.
I mean, I
and-
appreciate it, you're doing a great job, but I would think anybody, all these people, like free $100 bill, I mean, and nobody wants it, maybe we're barking up the wrong tree. That's just my comment.
But you're sending a message that we care, and we're trying to do
I understand.
We're trying to do that.
But if you figure out how much it costs to give $900 away, it's probably way more, a lot.
Council President, and then Lydia, and then Mr.
Well,
Jack W.
And just to reiterate, it's $90 for the year, correct?
That was for the year, yeah,
Yeah, because it's just on the utility tax,
Right.
not on the bill itself.
correct.
So adding up all the figures, it's really only $90.
100 is the
Well,
max,
100
yeah,
or s-
yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, most elderly people aren't commuter literate at all. I don't even know if some of them are paying taxes. They may not even have a tax return, but I think, And I don't think a lot of them realize how high you can have an income to be low income.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, but I think what would really help for some of these folks is just to have perhaps David or somebody on staff that could file the work for them. Just say, hey, send me a telephone bill, because you're saying just one bill, and so that you have proof of that, you know, that you're paying a bill. And then have them fill out the application for them, because I don't think they can do it themselves.
Well, that becomes a labor-intensive thing.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think anybody here is unwilling to help anybody. I mean, if they call, we'll give them the help. They've got to fill out the application and sign it and give us their utility bills. We can help them with copies, you know. We want to help.
Maybe we have a volunteer that could help. I mean, literally, if we want to increase the number of people applying, yeah. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Thank you. One of my questions was answered. I wonder if this could also go in the senior resource guide.
I believe it's in there,
Oh, it is, okay, thanks.
but good question.
Mike, you said that the $100 is the maximum rebate. What's the average rebate that there's been?
Looks like 50 what's 900 divided by 18? That's 50, yeah.
So $50 average rebate. I'm kind of thinking like what Jack Dovey's thinking, $50 average rebate, and how much time is probably spent by the people to get that $50 average rebate. You know, I mean, that it's, and on the marketing materials for it, is it saying the $50 average, I mean, is it saying that it's a $100 maximum rebate on it?
By listing out the 25 and the 20 and the 15 and the 15, if you add all of those up, they add up to a 100 if you used all of the utilities.
Mm-hmm. You know, because I'm thinking that maybe part of the reason that there's not very many people taking advantage of it is because, you know, that the work that it takes to get $50 rebate, they're thinking, yeah, it's really not worth it.
If they're judging it not worth their time, I can't control that, but we can control the outreach, and we're
Yeah.
trying to push it out.
But it seems to me as though if we want to help people, there may be better ways to help them that will actually help them more with less staff time spent and less resources. You know,
Sure.
I mean, that there's,
Yeah.
in theory, it sounds great. However, in reality, you know, I don't think it's really hitting the target that we want it to hit. So, anyway.
I'm also arming you with messaging so that anybody you talk to, you can just say, we have a utility tax rebate program, go to the website, and you've just done some outreach. So we're trying to think of everything we can, yeah.
Yeah, so.
I mean, one more comment, but it seemed statistically we could pretty figure out how many people should qualify. They don't want to sign up. Maybe we should just say, take that money, whatever that is, and give it to the food bank. You know, it'd be better use of the money. I mean, we want to give it back, and we're willing to give them $50 or whatever the number is, but nobody's applying. I'm sure we can find somewhere in our records that says how many people make $47,000 that are seniors that should qualify this, and come up with a number and donate it to something that, like the senior center.
I would say we're doing both right now.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
and
you.
I'm not sure that we do have a way to find out how much people make.
Wouldn't I know King County, you know, with all those rebates for tax returns, I mean, I filled one out the other day for an elderly lady. I mean, I bet you they have those records in Federal Way of how many people are on reduced property tax. That's the same person we're going after.
Yeah, they might give us the number.
So I do have some comments about this. First of all, thank you for continue doing this. But by looking at the website, I can tell you that for the people with limited English speaking capability, I don't think they can navigate the website. Okay, that's number one. For the outreach portion, I know we have tried to share this information as widely as possible, but I think we are missing a couple of critical partner agency that we can partner with. For example, my office, DSHS office here, that office serves 16,000 resident, low-income people in the city, 16,000. I can almost guarantee you, if you can give me this marketing material, and then we translate it to a couple of languages, I am pretty sure I will have another 500 people apply for this program.
Done.
Seriously. We can share with multi-service center. We can share the information with food bank. We can share with many nonprofit churches in this city for our outreach. So it is doable to increase the number of people that willing to apply for this program. The other thing that I want to comment is that similar to Bo Jackson mentioned, that the amount seems pretty insignificant, right? So if we can, maybe not today, but down the road, maybe we can talk about perhaps increase the amount so that it's make more attractive for people to apply. Maybe we can try that too. So, but thank you for doing it.
This is exactly the discussion we wanted to have before the program starts. Thank you.
Please send me the brochure. I'll make sure that we divvy it up and give it to the community members.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
before we came up with these amounts, we had some people who were getting $300-400 back on, because this is just a portion of what they're paying on the tax. It's not paying the utility bill. And we had some people getting $25.50. So we came up with these numbers because they were most likely what someone would most likely pay. And we made it easier. Instead of having an applicant give us 12 months of a bill, they only had to give us one. So somewhere along the, and then COVID happened. So somewhere along the line, there's been something's happened to make a disconnect with this. So if we wanted to increase these numbers, we certainly could. We just tried to make it simpler for the applicants and simpler for the staff, because then the staff didn't have to go through and add all these numbers up. And, yeah, we just try to make it an easier program, and something happened, and a lot less people are taking advantage of it.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Do you think, Steve, that there's any way we could get volunteers to translate the brochure into the different languages, such as Russian, Spanish? So that
I'm thinking I will ask David in Communications and Sarah in Community Service if they know, because I don't know, but I'll bet we have multiple departments here. We all work together.
Korean,
Yeah.
we have the Korean community,
Yeah.
because that's a good idea. Thank you.
I think the city has a language, contract, but I don't think using volunteers is really wise, because sometimes it could be
Seems to me we do, and we'll find it.
but I would suggest that we do not use volunteers. Thank you.
Jack, I see your light on. Do you have any? Oh, thank you. All right.
Just trying to be an attention hog.
Yeah. All right, so I think we are done with this subject. We are
Yep.
moving on to the next one, resolution adopting 2024 fee schedule. Jace?
Seeing so little support from other departments, I'm going to let Chase try to field this. He's worked with several people from departments. We'll see how far we can get.
Good evening, Chair Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kuchma, Council Committee members, and the public. Before you is the 2024 proposed fee schedule resolution that we bring to you annually. This is standard for each year. I'll start with what we've talked to you about in regard to investments, but now it's on the fee schedule side. CPI and inflation has increased, as you all know, with the height being at 10.1%, and now kind of leveling. It's been leveling off some, 4.8%. With that said, in context of the fee schedule, many of our fees that you see in your packet, the packet is 12 pages of fees for various different departments, primarily within the Community Development and Public Works Department, but we have fees for parks as well as police. And there's 16 sections of fees, and many of them are increased by an average CPI inflation number. Just to highlight a few of the sections with some of the changes that have occurred outside of just CPI changes. In Section 7, accessory dwelling limit fees were eliminated to align with the Federal Way Revised Code 19-15-020. And that was eliminated as part of that Federal Way Revised Code. The mobile food truck permit review fees were added to be in alignment with what we're already doing. And then the multifamily tax exemption fees were added to align with the sections of the Federal Way Revised Code listed there. Then in Section 10, those are all, just for clarification, in Section 7, that is a section of the community development fees. In Section 10, which is Public Works fees, the right-of-way work without a permit, they were already charging a fee based on fees that were within the fee schedule. They're just clarifying specifically residential versus other in that section. And then in Section 15, the Federal Way Community Center resident and non-resident membership fees have been increased to keep up with CPI and inflation and the costs that it takes to run the facility. And then in sections 3, 5, and 7, which are primarily community development, and actually they're all community development and public works fees. Each time we bring this fee schedule before you, these are all increased by CPI, an average CPI, and we show a column with the 2023 fee, as well as the proposed 2024 fee for each of those fees. This is related to right-of-way permits, building permits, plan review, and all the associated fees with those sections. And the new amounts are in red, and the prior fee that was approved by council in the last resolution is in black under the 2023 fee column. And I'd be happy to try to assist in answering some questions. A lot of these fees are specific to detailed department items, but I'd be glad to.
Thank you, Chase.
Yeah.
Paul, and then Jack.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. The first one is understanding what is SF/GFA? We have a couple more that I'll give you. Section 13, impact mitigation, number C. You have elementary schools per, and it has SF/GFA crossed out, and it has student now. So, and the reason I'm asking on that one is it went from $4.41 to $538.
Yeah, it went from a GFA to a per student. I don't have that information.
You know what a GFA is? That's what I'm asking you. What is a GFA?
Yeah, I don't have that information.
Oh.
I can reach back out to the department and get that information for you, though.
Yeah, I'd be curious because we have literally $4 to $500, $6 to $800. I mean, there's some huge jumps. And the one that I really have a question on is the expresso drive-throughs. Last year's fee was $78, and it's $14,920 now. So I'm definitely want to know what that is about.
Okay.
And then the other one I have, just for clarification, is going to be on the community center. I see we're raising our rental fees for just rentals. I'm curious to know what percentage are we maxed out for renting those facilities out currently?
Okay.
The rates aren't a super jump, but I just want to make sure that we're maxing out if we're going to be raising them by a couple $100
Yep.
a shot.
I will definitely bring those back to the departments that propose those fees.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jack?
Yeah, my question is, I understand, I was looking at some of these and some that Councilmember McDaniel talked about are really big jumps, but let's say that inflation goes down in 2025, would we ratchet these down also? I mean, right now you're going up 4.8% or whatever the number is I can't remember, do we ever take them down?
I don't recall taking them down in the past.
Not that it-
Inflation has continued to grow as, so fees, inflation is upon inflation, and so fees have, costs have continued to grow over the years and to recover the costs.
Well, I mean, it's never gone down, but I just,
There's been a few-
it's
yeah,
not gone up a lot, but if we had,
Yeah, there's been only a few isolated months. It's always been year-over-year increase.
yeah. But in the future, if something changed and inflation went down or you had deflation, we could drop these to same percentages, correct? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we try to bring these approximately annually.
All right, so I don't mind making the recommendation, but I mean, the big one for me is the espresso one. That's a huge jump, so I'd like to, $70 to 14,000 doesn't make sense to me. So I'll make the recommendation, but depending on what I get for feedback will be if I pull this thing off or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other comment to this fee schedule, one of the items that was left out of this fee schedule that we need to, I'm going to propose as a housekeeping item, was under the parks impact fee. All of our impact fees have a 5% administration fee, and there's just a little bit of language that says a 5% administration fee will be added to the impact fee. And so the parks impact fee left that out when it was originally approved by council, and so we're just adding that into the fee schedule. It's not in your packet, but we would like to propose to change that as a housekeeping item.
Where would that be located? What section?
That's section 13, parks impact fee.
Yeah, we want to be as transparent as possible on the fee schedule when people look at it.
Is that for any rentals from parks then? If it's community center?
This is the impact, this isn't parks rental, this is impact fees related to growth of
Oh, I see it.
parks within the city.
I have a quick question while others are looking at stuff.
Go ahead.
And you probably won't know, nobody from Parks is left here, but for the community center rentals, I mean, it has the wedding package, which looks like it's been eliminated for use for a wedding, and just wanted to know what the reason for that was.
Yeah.
Once again,
They-
that's,
My understanding is that was a cleanup item. They weren't actually offering that particular item
Okay.
from discussing with them.
And I guess to follow up with that, I believe they're still having weddings there, they just charge the meeting rate.
okay. All right, that makes sense.
That's correct.
Good catch.
Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. I move to forward the proposed resolution to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Matter pass 3-0. Thank you, Chase. And you have the next item, AP voucher 10/16/2023, 11/15/2023, and payroll voucher from 11/01/23 to 11/30/2023.
Yeah, good evening, council. Before you are the AP vouchers in the total amount of $4,468,716.41, and payroll vouchers in the amount of $4,140,738.50. This is a page in your packet that just gives you context for comparison to prior months. As you can see, the AP vouchers are very consistent, and we total out a number of the total categories within those AP vouchers, including construction, project costs, consulting services, jail services, et cetera. And then same with the payroll vouchers, a 3-month comparison. The reason why that has started to drop off is just due to temporary help. temporary help starts to decrease slightly into the winter months. In the summer months, it is quite high just due to the amount of events that are occurring in the Parks Department. And so I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think we sent out a voucher response email to your email, Deputy Mayor Honda. I'd be happy to answer any
Yes,
additional
thank you.
questions. Yeah.
No, it was good, thank you.
Thank you, Chase.
Yep.
Any more questions for Chase? Seeing none, I have motion, please.
I move to forward the vouchers to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
We have motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That pass 3-0. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We
Thank
are
you.
coming down to the last item, item N, monthly financial report for October 2023.
I
Mr.
will-
Broom.
I'll preface this by saying there's no surprises, but the thing that makes this most compelling is we just recently did a budget amendment based on forecasting how the year was going to end, so I feel compelled to tell you month by month how things are working out. In the general fund, the street fund, you know, both general fund, street fund, and other major funds are virtually, the expenses are right on budget. That's, we kind of knew that because that's why we've been making budget amendments to get us through the end of the year so that all of the funds, none of them will be negative. Now, this slide, we see this every month. We show you how the revenues are coming in against budget. The top 5 are general fund. The bottom 3 are in other, no, I'm sorry, property tax. I could have moved back up to the top. Property tax turned positive, and we knew that our expectation was that it would finish the year on budget. So REIT and lodging tax are our 2 negatives. Sales tax, I think we changed to this format last month. The lower right graph shows cumulatively how we're doing. The red line is the current year compared to the blue line prior year, and then the gray wedge is budget. And then the cumulative 9 months here for sales tax compared to the prior years. This continues to show that sales tax is strong, and I'm not going to say I'm relieved, but I'm having made a forecast that our year end will finish strongly. There's no reason for us to not deviate from the trajectory that we're on. Same exact thing with utility taxes. We've been very stable and predictable with how our utility taxes come in. Next year, when we start to do our budget, both of these should be fairly, I hesitate to use the word easy, but predictable. Property tax, this one is absolutely predictable. The only question is when during the year it comes in. So we had a particularly strong October, which means we'll have a very weak November, and we'll finish pretty much exactly where the tax levy was authorized. Real estate excise tax. This is the one where we had to back off on the timing of 5 projects in EJ's department. It just is sluggish. I still think that's due to mortgage rates, and we've, not to beat that dead horse, but I will continue to bring it to you every month. It is still weak, and the way that we're compensating is we're spending more slowly. We're only going to spend what we get in. Lodging tax, it's we're doing a little bit better than last year, not quite as good as we budgeted. And I have to believe that a large part of this is, I think we're past the pandemic. I think the tourism and hospitality sector has rebounded. I think as we go to do our budget for 25 and 26, we're just going to have to recognize that the county took 2 of our hotels. Fusion took one of the hotels. We just have 765 rooms instead of the 1,001 we had before the pandemic. But really, this is a much smaller scale. The scale there is we had a budget less than 300,000, and we're gonna get about there. So the way that we're compensating for missing budget, it's only missing by $9,000. In the overall scheme of things, that's just tourism grants. We make sure that we have the money before we spend it. Investment revenue has been performing better than I thought it would. Rates are still not coming down. The Federal Reserve has not backed off rates. We are going to bring in more than double what we budgeted, and that really isn't a surprise. And we just continue to buy 4.5 or 5-year investments. So the rates that we locked in, today we got a 4.3 this morning. That'll be locked in for 4 years. And so that will make our budget fairly predictable. Our investment holdings, nothing changes. We had a treasury mature and we bought another treasury. The big green chunk down there at the bottom, that's how much we have on deposit at the state treasurer. I think that it is earning, 4.3%. So just exactly, what we're getting on our investments. The difference is what we invest in, we lock in rates for 4 years. The state treasurer's fund is, when rates go down, it'll go down pretty much at the same time. How we're doing as far as the Federal Reserve rate heights, they've paused for a couple of months. And then we use our 2-year Treasury index just to kind of prove to you that, the rates are still kind of up. So, and what we're buying is not quite 5%, but close. Here again, we had a maturity in October. It was earning 1.7, and the one that we purchased in October, 4.59. So we improved the rates on $1 million of our total. So that went out, and the other one came in. Just a little bit of improvement. Our cash balance in October hit $120 million. That's the most we've ever had. We still have some ARPA money to be spent, so that will come down, but as long as we've got it, it's going to earn interest for us. This debt chart we brought last month, and nothing has changed. We only have debt payments in December and June. June is generally interest only, and I think December is when we have our principal payments. We'll just keep bringing this current every month. I think we refer to it from time to time, so I'll keep it in our report. What this said was that everything that we have is non-callable until 2029, and the stuff that is callable, we're not paying as much as we're earning on our investments. And that brings me to the same conclusion we always have. Expenditures are right on budget. Revenues are almost all favorable. The best one was sales tax. We're monitoring REIT and lodging tax, so we compensate with our spending. Cash balances continue to be strong, and investments, I'm just surprised, pleased that we're still able to invest month by month where we are. So that helps us for the next 2, 3, 4 years when we do our budget. I'm open for questions unless you want to go home.
I'll make it easy then. Sales tax, is the increase due to just overall sales, or is it because we have more business licenses and more sales going on, spread across more companies?
Part of it's inflation. Part of it's inflation, so that's depending on, 3%, 4%, 6%, whatever that is. I think it said it was up 12%, is that what I think it was? So 3 or 4% is inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, it's going to be volume because the tax rate hasn't changed. So I think that's a positive to our economy that the volume has increased.
Right. And the other one I had was the red lights. Is that a restricted fund? Revenues from the red light cameras? I know what it goes into, but I don't know if it was restricted or.
Yes, that's restricted revenue. It can only be spent on law enforcement purposes. Andy's not going to let me give it to anybody else. And I say that in jest. It's absolutely restricted revenue, yeah.
Okay, that was all I had.
I say that, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we use it predominantly to fund police officer salaries.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Steve, I do have a question regarding the investment. So the interest rate is still high, but eventually it will coming down because
Yes.
of the inflation is start to coming down.
Yes.
I wonder if we should invest a little bit more to lock in those high interest rate.
Right, we have $40 million in our state pool, and we know about 14 million of it is going to be spent down as we spend our ARPA. And so we kind of have been debating a little bit of that internally. And I appreciate your confidence because when we started our investment program, I did not want to scare management or council by, having a new finance director coming in and making a drastic change. But I think we agree with you. When interest rates do come down, another thing is that the yield curve is upside down, it's inverted. Normally, if you go to the bank and you buy a 5-year CD, you're going to get a higher rate, not a lower rate. Well, right now, I can buy a 2 or 3 month treasury and get more interest than I can get for a 5-year. So we also think when things get back to normal, that hopefully by always investing in a 5-year investment, we think we're getting the best rate we can get. Right now, that's not true. We're taking a long view. And which your comment also takes a long view. Lock in rates as they are, right?
Just a thought.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And are we going out in 2024 to get money for the maintenance and operations yard, or is that in 2025?
2024, I believe, is when EJ says he will have the design completed and we'll have the costs done, going out to bid, and we'll have the land acquisition all finalized. It takes about 6 months, and we're having conversations right now to be prepared to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're ready.
We're having iPad issues on this side of the dais.
I think we're ready to vote.
I move to forward the October 2023 monthly financial report to the December 5th, 2023 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter pass 3-0. Thank you. And that concludes our meeting for this month. Just a reminder, there will be no FedRAC meetings in the month of December. The next meeting is going to be January 23rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. in this room. As always, thank you, staff, for being here today and for your support. And on behalf of this committee and the council, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.